Consideration. Are there any bills for introduction? There are no bills for introduction. The House then comes to questions for oral answer, and the first question stands in the name of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker,
the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, my question's to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by his statement to the House yesterday, and I quote, "The reason that families should take some comfort is that by and large, for the most part, their wages are rising faster than the rate of inflation. If so, what is the proportion of families that are expected to receive above inflation wage rises between March 2010 and March 2011?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, and I'll explain carefully to the member why the quote in the first part of his question is correct. Over the 7 quarters from September 2008 to June 2010, Statistics New Zealand data, which happens to be the same data used to calculate New Zealand super, shows the following. Wages have risen 7% before tax, which equates to 11% after tax. Interestingly enough, over the same period, prices have risen by 2%. Now, for the purposes of education of the Leader of the Opposition,
Order.
7%
Order.
and 11% are higher than 2%.
Order. That comment was unnecessary. The Prime Minister was fine till that point, but he does the question as a straight question and does not need to educate the Leader of the Opposition at all. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we had considerable discussion about members on both sides of the House not being seated when you asked them to. Sir, I think it was 3 times you called order to the Prime Minister before he stopped.
With respect, I think the Prime Minister resumed his seat reasonably promptly when I got to my feet. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
So, Mr. Speaker, as we can all see, 7% and 11% are higher than 2%. So whatever way you look at it, pre-tax or after-tax, wages have risen faster than inflation. Now, I know the Leader of the Opposition may not like the facts getting involved of the good story, but that's the way they are. With regard to the second part of the member's question, I'm not aware of any such projections.
I apologise, I didn't hear the last part of the Prime Minister, Right Honourable Prime Minister's answer. If you just repeat it.
So with regard to the second part of the member's question, I'm not aware of any such projections.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. I thank the Prime Minister.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Can I seek leave of the House to table, for example, the BNZ predictions that show that inflation will be hitting close to 5% by the beginning of next year?
Leavers sought to table that document. I trust there is a document.
There is.
Leavers sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is objection. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, supplementary question.
Supplementary, talk about facts getting in the way of a good story.
Order.
Well,
there will be no further comment, but the Honourable Leader of the Opposition saw me deal with the Prime Minister, and I'll deal with the Leader of the Opposition in exactly the same way. That kind of comment, gratuitous comment, will not be allowed. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition,
question, Mr. Speaker. Is the Prime Minister therefore telling New Zealand families that they are wrong when they believe that the cost of everything is going up, and that's leaving them less well off than they were a year ago, because most of them haven't had wage rises?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if they are saying the cost of, quote, everything is going up, then yes, they are wrong, and that is because the price of petrol under 2 years of a Labour government went up 43%. It's actually gone down 13%. The price of vegetables under the last 2 years of a Labour government went up 21%. Under a National government, they fell by 6%. The price of eggs, Mr. Speaker, under the last 2 years of a Labour government went up 19%. Under a National government, they've fallen 6%. Interestingly enough, the price of cheese in the last 2 years of a Labour government went up 50%. They've fallen 3%.
Order. I think the House has heard sufficient answer. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister is right, why is it that VEDA, the country's largest credit agency, reports that, and I quote, tens of thousands of New Zealanders are finding they just can't pay their bills, end quote, and that consumer defaults have leapt by a massive 18% since January of this year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, because consumer defaults are a lagging indicator, and unfortunately, these people are having to deal with the mess that Labor left the country in.
Order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, can I table a document from Vader Advantage showing this isn't a lagging indicator, this is from January of this year?
Order. Now listen, I say it again to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, he's a very experienced member. He knows the rules of the House. When he seeks leave to table a document, he does not make those sorts of comments. I'll ask him to seek leave properly. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave of the House to table a statement from Vader Advantage showing that tens of thousands of New Zealanders are finding they can't pay their bills and that, sir, the rate of defaults is at an all-time high. It's 18% since January.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection.
Thank you.
Joe Goodhue, supplementary.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Prime Minister, do wages always rise faster than inflation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, no, that's not always the case. And can I give the House just one example, purely for the purposes of comparison, Mr Speaker? I've chosen the 7 quarters from December 2006 to September 2008. After-tax wages rose by 6%, inflation rose by 7%. So in that period, wages fell behind inflation, leaving workers worse off. I'd contrast that with the answer to my primary question, where pre-tax and after-tax wages rose by 7 and 11% and inflation was 2%. And as everybody in the House knows, 7 and 11 are greater than 2.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Order. Order. Before I call the Honourable Member, this habit of clapping endlessly is getting a little tiresome. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Can the Prime Minister tell the House when was the last time that median wages fell in New Zealand as they did in the year to June of this year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, it's becoming worrying the lack of economic knowledge on the other side of the House. But anyway.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker.
Order.
It was Bill English, Mr Speaker.
Order them. Now look, the House is not... Member will resume his seat right away. He knows he doesn't need to do that when he's raising a point of order. In fact, he mustn't do that. I've warned members. I spoke to the whips yesterday afternoon. After yesterday, everyone is aware that there will not be a repeat of yesterday. And that includes the member who interjected, the Deputy Prime Minister, will not do that sort of thing. If the only reason, where I do have to be careful is where members have questions on the order paper. I don't want to punish other parts of the House through evicting a minister who should be answering a question. But I'll do what I have to do. I'll find another way of penalising ministers if they think the Speaker won't penalise them. If they want to keep the supplementary questions that they think some of their colleagues will ask them, they'd better behave. And so too would the member raising a point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Speaker, the point of order was a straightforward one. It was a very straightforward question, using your advice, a direct question, and the Prime Minister, in fact, abused the Leader of the Opposition in his first phrase.
Order. I hear the member, and I invite that. Well, I'll hear the Leader of the Acting Leader of the House, the Honourable Simon Power.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We're probably at the stage now where this issue does need a little more clarification, because the understanding that we'd had through a discussion yesterday was that the matter of the straight question and answer without any reference to politics, oddly enough, would occur from the primary question. When supplementary questions were to follow, there was obviously going to be a bit of toing and froing. Now, if that matter is to be refined further, it would be worth letting the House know how well refined it is to be.
Well, very happy to let the House know, because it's clear that I was misunderstood. Where supplementary questions are perfectly clear and do not contain political statements or any such comment, I expect a straight answer. Where they contain political statements, the member asking the question should know, don't expect my help if they get a political statement in response. And what's more, if members asking political questions